Welcome, 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 everyone. I am Zach Jones with Vertical Measures, and I'm here hosting VM's monthly webinar series. Today's webinar is titled The Top 10 CRO Hacks Guaranteed to Double Your Leads and Sales, and will be presented by our guest host, Larry Kim. Larry is widely considered one of the most influential experts and thought leaders in the digital marketing industry today. In 2007, Larry bootstrapped his company WordStream by providing internet consulting services while developing an innovative search marketing platform that enables even novice marketers to be successful at paid search. Currently, Larry is the CEO of Mobile Monkey and is an avid blogger and has quite a social media following. But before we get started, and I hand it over to Larry, I have a few notes I want to get through. Today's webinar will be available tomorrow for viewing. We will send out an email with a link with everything you need, and it'll also be on our website, so just be on the look for that email. We'll also be happy to answer any questions you have during the webinar. So if you look at your little webinar interface, you'll see a questions tab or the chat tab. Feel free to ask on there at any point, and we will ask at the end if we, depending on how much time we have. And one final quick note, Vertical Measures unveiled Content Amp Camp today, which is a 2-week e-course promotion and distribution. You can find more on our Facebook, our Twitter, our LinkedIn, or you can go to the website vert.ms/ampcamp. That's vert.ms/amp-camp. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to Larry. Here you go, Larry.
Hey, thanks everyone for joining us today, and yes, let's get it right started with our 10 CRO truth bombs that will forever change your approach to marketing. Guys, I hate to break it to you, 99% of these CRO, so-called best practices, are actually fairy tales. What I mean by this is, if you've ever read one of those stories, one of those blogs, one of those fairy tales, it goes something like, we made this change to the layout or something like this, and lo and behold, we got this 5% increase in conversions. And sure enough, if you just string these little things together, 10 of these, that's a 50% increase in conversions. Look, I totally get it. I used to believe that this was the case, but there was a couple of reasons why I became skeptical later in life. Number one, if this guy was doing these dumb CRO things, one test a week and getting 5% gains for every test, and if it was if they did it for a year or two, you compound this thing over time, and it's like, wait a minute, it's like you got 1,000% increase in conversions, and of course then you look at your actual conversion rates, and you're still converting at like 2 or 3% like you were the year before, and the year before, and the year before. So yeah, it's all just a big lie. Usually. In fact, I can explain to you sort of what happens here. This is a very typical A/B test. It happens like plus 95% of the time. This is like, and people tell me, oh, Larry, in order for this to be true, you have to have lots of conversions, and it has to be statistically significant. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. This was thousands and thousands of visitors and almost 100 conversions. Statistical significance. You can determine that with 20 or 10 conversions. Okay, but basically what happened here was we did an A/B test where the contender, if you will, sort of was the winner, and was even declared the statistically significant winner. But then a week later, things started to decline, and there was an inversion, and the winner became the loser. And so this is what happens all the time. Like these little statistically insignificant leads, they just don't hold up, and over time there's always a reversion back to the mean. In fact, if you want to prove this to yourself, take the exact same page, okay? So A, B, where you don't even make a different button size or anything. They're the exact same page, and run it, okay? So you're racing A against B, where A is the same as a clone of B. And your stupid software will sometimes declare A a winner, and it'll sometimes declare B a winner. So that's what I'm talking about. It's just total nonsense. You're just sampling noise. So that happens I'd say 95% of the time. Sometimes when the conversion rates actually go up, it's what happening is, and if that sticks, What happens is it's just you're getting more leads, but it comes at the expense of quality. What I mean by this is like if you're promising free beer, okay, of course more people are going to sign up for their damn thing, but it's going to be like all these like affiliate marketers trying to get your free beer, and just so that they can resell it or something like this. I had these customers where like we were celebrating, and it was like our conversion rates went from 1 to 2 to 4 to 7%. But then no one bothered to check to see like how that was impacting the marketing qualification rates, and that was falling from 18 to 9 to 5 to 2%. It's because all these people wanting the free beer weren't actually qualified. So it's not necessarily about just like trying to put another way, if you had a form with like 100 fields, right, you'd have a very, very low conversion rate, right? But the one person who did fill out all 100 fields, you would be a really good lead because like you just spent 10 minutes filling out a form. So yeah, you just a lot of these CRO, best practices they're kind of just exchanging quantity for quality, if you will. Another thing that makes me really skeptical is this notion of the fact that like CRO has gained tremendously in popularity over the last decade. As you can see here, there's a lot of interest, and I know in marketing there's like a lot of companies and individuals who specialize in conversion rate optimization. But the problem is, despite all this interest in making things convert better, the average conversion rate on the internet for marketing hasn't changed in 15 years. It's still like 2.35%. If everyone's doing CRO, why hasn't that moved over time? You see what I'm saying? It's just reversion to the mean. And so yeah, a lot of this conventional CRO stuff, I just think it's a lot of smoke and mirrors. And so these unicorns, they're pretty mad about the situation, and so they hired a private investigator to figure out what's going on, and I am that private investigator. I will share with you today sort of my findings, but before getting into all the details of today's hacks on conversion rate optimization, just wanted to introduce myself briefly. I'm Larry Kim. I'm also the founder of the International Unicorn Marketing Association, trying to make CRO magical again. I'm originally from Canada, from a province called Manitoba, which happens to be the polar bear capital of the world. It's a very cool place. Moved to Boston about a decade ago after college. Here's a couple photos of Boston. That was just a joke, guys. It's not really Boston. That's the rebel base on Hoth from Star Wars Empire Strikes Back. Just kidding. That's a joke. And I live in Harvard Square. In Cambridge. It's a famous area where Microsoft was founded. It's also where Facebook was founded. And it's also where WordStream was founded. I started the company kind of as a sole proprietor, internet marketing consulting guru, working out of a bakery in 2008, working by myself. I didn't even have any partners. And today the company is over 220 people, I guess, and manages $1 billion or more of advertising spend for over 10,000 customers worldwide, and is among the top 500 fastest growing companies in America. I just left the company a few months ago just to pursue a new company in the AI and mobile marketing space. It's called Mobile Monkey, and we're building chatbot software that should be ready maybe next year sometime. And the last thing I'll just share about myself is that I have a 3-year-old kid. He's now 3. I should have updated that slide. But here we are. We are running the Boston Marathon together, and he was trying to help me out, but actually it was just kind of weighing me down there. But anyways, the kids are really funny. Okay, back to our story today. We're talking about the great conspiracy of conversion rate optimization, and I'm going to just share with you my 10 best kind of tips and tricks to kind of change kind of how you approach the topic of conversion rate optimization. And starting with number 10. Maybe you should consider killing off your obvious calls to action. Okay, those sacred cow, the call to action. Like it's so precious that there's even a conversion rate conference called Call to Action Conference. Okay, and I'm suggesting that maybe you can get rid of them. Why on earth would I think that to be the case? Well, these are like some of our top email subjects for the last quarter, and I'm not sure if you noticed this, but none of these actually have like a click here or buy now. Like there's no call to action on any of these subject lines. And so why do you think that is? Well, I have a theory. Um, my theory is that these calls to action things, it's been a best practice for 20 years now. Okay, you're supposed to write at the end of an ad or at the end of a headline like try it now or get more info or learn more or buy now. And I'm like, that was kind of a big deal maybe 15 years ago when the internet was new and people even 20 years ago, like when they didn't realize like how Google worked and you have to click on these links and they'll take you somewhere. I don't know, like maybe I mean, it just seems like pretty obvious now. You see what I'm saying? And these days, like in your ads, you only have what is it, 25 characters to kind of express your value proposition. Same thing with the subject lines. And so, some of this stuff is pretty obvious. They know that if they open the email, they'll learn more. They know if they click on the blue thing, that they'll have the option to buy it. And so, what I'm suggesting is maybe you eliminate them and free up room for something a little more meaningful and a little less obvious. Okay, so just carrying on to number 9, CRO truth bomb, which is to raise those click-through rates. So it's funny, like click-through rates is kind of upstream from conversion rates, right? Because that happens even before they have a chance to read your stuff. But the higher the click-through rates, we found the higher the conversion rates. So basically, it's kind of this idea here that if you want more people to buy this thing, if we can just make it more clicky, like just make people more excited about this ad, you'll actually get more sales. Let me give you an example. This ad is a donkey. It just says, it's very matter of fact, it's like breast cancer screening with early detection survival rate is 100%. Book an appointment today. Fine. There's nothing wrong with it. Like it's just very matter of fact and it's kind of boring. Okay. So what we did was we turned it into a unicorn ad by just kind of flipping it around a little bit. Breast cancer screening, so no change in the headline, but just kind of introducing sort of a more, I mean, you're taking the same factoid but flipping it over. So only 15% of women live 5 or more years with late detection, which is true, get screened. So here it's like we've gone with an emotional trigger. In this case, it's fear. If you think of the person who's doing this search, they're probably scared about something, and so this is like really, this is a pretty shocking statistic. And then we're not speaking to them as from the persona of a company. We're talking to them from the perspective of like some adjacent, like a colleague, bearer of bad news, if you will. And so what happened was when we just made that one little switcheroo in the copy by tapping into those emotions and making it higher click-through rates, it generated a substantially higher number of daily appointments being booked for this company, as well as substantially more calls being driven. And so I think the hack here is like, what we did is we kind of got rid of some of those dumb calls to actions and filled it instead with kind of an emotional trigger, and I think that actually helped because it basically raised the click-through rates, and what we found was that those higher click-through rates lead to higher conversion rates because whatever it is you did to make people excited about clicking something, that kind of carries through to purchase. Now, the other thing I'll say here is just that. Especially calls is another way of doing CRO, like call conversions. Why? Because even if you get people to sign up for your stupid, fill out the form kind of thing, that doesn't mean that you're going to be able to contact them back. In fact, the contact rate, it's like, after a day, like maybe you can get in touch with half of them. Why? Because whatever it was they were calling about, or they were trying to solve at the moment, the need might have passed and it's no longer relevant. And so just pushing things to calls dramatically increases the contact qualification rate. Number 8, we're talking about remarketing, like advertising. It's my belief that this is a conversion rate optimization task, even though a lot of people just consider that kind of like advertising. That's like, how is that conversion rate optimization? Well, the thing about remarketing is that the conversion rate, which is the thing that we're trying to optimize for, it it increases dramatically the more times people have seen an ad. So like meaning the more familiar you are with a business, the more likely you are to convert if you then click on the ad. Alternatively, another way of looking at it is it's like they're capitulating. It's like you keep nagging them, for the sale or to buy your thing, and then eventually when they do click on your thing after seeing it 6 or 7 times, it's like, okay, I'm going to buy the thing. Okay, it's like they've kind of put it off for a while, and then finally you've got them. And so basically the idea here with remarketing, it's don't be, it's like the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Be aggressive. Target Facebook, Google Display Network. Set these durations to like 3 times the sales cycle. So like if you're a car dealer and you typically sell people a car in like a week, in terms of the first touch point to the closed sale, well then target these people for 3 weeks. That's 3 times the average sales cycle. That's just to make sure that they remember you and you're always top of mind. Don't set any limits on impression caps, and run multiple different ads per campaign to make sure that they don't have ad fatigue. Okay, number 7, I wanted to talk a little bit about brand affinity and how that dramatically impacts conversion rates. So this is kind of similar to the last point, which was like the more familiar people are with your brand, the more likely they are to convert. People don't randomly buy from places that they haven't heard of. They tend to favor the brands that they've heard of and trust before. And so this is a study where I just looked at the conversion rates of new visitors to a company versus repeat visitors who have existing brand affinity. And you can see the conversion rates are 2 to 3 times higher than the ones where they've never heard of the company before and this is their first visit. I think that's really interesting because it kind of explains to some extent the basically it's like when I was doing conversion rate optimization a few years ago, like 10 years ago, I thought like I was a hero, that I was like doing all this work and it was like turning into sales and leads and marketing. But now that I'm like 10 years older and I'm kind of looking back, it's like the success was kind of preordained based on the brand affinity of the company. So like meaning if you're doing the pay-per-click advertising for Nike, those campaigns are going to do really well because everyone's heard of them. If you're running for the campaigns for some unknown shoe store that no one's ever heard of, well, it's going to be very hard. And it's basically the success and failure of the campaigns are almost already baked in when you have like these situations where like there's such a huge brand advantage in terms of conversion rates for if people have heard of you before. Number 6, talking about another PPC hack. My background's in PPC, by the way. It's this technology called RLSA, Remarketing Lists for Search Ads, RLSA. So what's RLSA? It's basically remarketing for search ads. And what you're doing here is you're targeting users who visited your site and then searched for a keyword that's interesting for your business. You see what I'm saying? So like you're not buying all the ads for a certain keyword, just for the people who happen to have visited your site in the last 30 days. Okay, again, the reason why this is important is because there's a huge difference between new and repeat visitors. So if you're targeting people who are familiar with you and have checked you out recently, then they have brand affinity with your company, and that has a tremendous impact on click-through rates, right? That these people are going to much more likely to click on your ad than the other ads that they haven't heard of. It's like, again, 2 to 3 times more likely to click on ads if they've heard of you. And of course, higher click-through rates, they dramatically reduce your cost per click, right? Higher click-through rates, you get a 50% discount. If you have low click-through rates, you pay a 400% penalty for those ads. And what's so interesting about RLSA, it's like it's like win-win-win. So it doubles or triples your click-through rates. The higher click-through rates will lead to lower costs per click, and those clicks that you do buy are the ones that are like 2 to 3 times more likely to convert. right? Because remember, people with affinity are the ones that are going to buy. The challenge here is that it's kind of like playing a football game where there's like all defense and no offense. Okay, because you're like remarketing isn't it's not a offensive strategy. It's a defensive one. You're kind of converting the people who've checked you out recently. What about finding the new people who haven't checked you out yet? And so another interesting strategy has to do with combining RLSA with SEO and content marketing. Why? Because SEO and content marketing is a really leveraged way of getting people to get exposed to your brand, and then you can harvest that newly created demand using the search remarketing campaigns on AdWords without paying too much. Like, in fact, if you're doing content marketing and SEO stuff, and you're not at least doing RLSA, like search remarketing ads, I think you're crazy. You're leaving money on the table. But that's just my opinion. But because you're buying all these keywords, but just for the people who checked you out in the last 30 days, and those are the ones that are like, I'm not going to say guaranteed, but those are the ones that are the most likely to buy your stuff, if you will. And so when you combine kind of the content marketing with RLSA search, you kind of fix the problem of low volume. So normally it's like you're going after with RLSA that black circle, like there's a small number of people who have brand affinity with your company, and RLSA by definition is only going after those people. Okay, there's so many more people out there that are like that would be open to buying from you, but just haven't heard of you yet. And so if you can get to them first with content marketing, then tag them with a cookie, and then remarket that to them through search, it's kind of like you're going to have a high quantity of high click-through rate clicks with low cost per clicks and high conversion rates. And by the way, there's a couple other ways of doing this too. If you happen to know, like the demographics of your target buyer, like I work with a company that sells speakers, like loudspeakers, and their target market is overwhelmingly male. Okay, it's like by like 5 to 1, it's male, and they all skew older because these are like really expensive products. Like an 18-year-old can't afford them. So if you can just kind of narrow the targeting a little bit, that's going to double or triple the conversion rates, because it's not about and the conversion rate is just a ratio of how many people bought the thing versus how many people looked at the thing. And if you can just lower the denominator by sending fewer crappy clicks, that's actually where the leverage is. It's upstream. By the time people have gotten to your site, it's kind of too late. You know what I mean? Like, it's like you can't change their identity or anything. So you need to be thinking upstream here. And in terms of Google AdWords, they have the same idea where you can go after people in demographic. It's basically it's for categories of parental status, your income level, gender, age, and there was one other one, I can't remember it. But just layering in additional targeting to make sure that the clicks that you're actually generating are the right people. So this is kind of the idea of the super RLSA strategy. It's so super because you're going after kind of people who are qualified to buy your thing, people who've checked you out recently, and who are searching for the things that you're hoping to sell, like all three, and then casting that narrow net, and they tend to be really profitable people. So number 5, we're almost done here. We're talking about my number 5 truth bomb, which is to do off-topic content. Off-topic content meaning like content that's outside of the niche of your business. Remember, so hopefully I've convinced you that a lot of the success and failure in conversion rate optimization happens, before they kind of are searching and land on your site. Okay, and so because by the time they search for your stuff, it's too late. The one with the brand affinity is going to win. So we kind of need to get to these people ahead of time. And one way we can do this is to do content marketing efforts by analyzing the demographics of your audience of your customers and trying to figure out what their interests are and producing content that kind of matches their interests. So that's kind of a way to getting in front of them before they do searches for whatever the products and services are that you're selling. And the way you can do this is just looking at People Explorer in Google Analytics, or upload your customer list into Facebook and get demographics on your target audience in terms of the audience manager and audience analytics. Twitter has another thing called audience insights. And basically, I don't know if you guys know much about me, but I do a lot of blogging on other topics outside of pay-per-click advertising. I talk about like entrepreneurship and leadership and business. Why? Because those are topics that are of great interest to my target audience, okay, like of people who end up buying my software solutions. And this is a way for me to kind of get in front of them by blogging outside of the niche, outside of the pay-per-click advertising. It's very technical. It's very nichey. It's for like a the market for that stuff is it's pretty constrained. But what I can do is I can just blog about how to be great at entrepreneurship, and later when those people have a need for online advertising solutions, they remember and favor my listings. Yeah, if that makes any sense. So. See, exactly. This is one thing that I did on Medium. It's like the ugly truth about being an entrepreneur. Just woo, like whatever. But these things they do really well on Medium and other places. Thousands of recommendations and 500,000 views a month, and that creates the brand affinity, which makes the conversion rates insanely high. So just basically what we're talking about is, the hack is it's actually marketing. It's like we're creating this inspirational, memorable piece of content about you or your brand or whatever it is you're trying to sell to your target market, and it has to be catchy. Like, they have to remember it, because if they see it, two things could happen. They might not necessarily buy the thing right that minute, but they'll become biased, and then meaning at the back of their head they'll kind of remember you, like 1-800-CARS for kids or something like that. You'll remember it in your head, and later when you do need to sell your car or whatever, you'll either do a branded search, or you'll call them, or you'll do an unbranded search, like how do I get rid of my car. But you'll be biased towards clicking on 1-800-CARS for kids because you've heard of that stupid jingle, and so that's kind of the key here for like doubling and tripling your conversion rates. Number 4, we've been talking about the power of brand biases, and one way to create even stronger biases is with video ads, because it just conveys so much more information than a search listing, like an organic or paid search listing. The other great thing about videos is that because they are so engaging, and Facebook ads pay kind of on a cost per, basically the Facebook ads pricing is based on how engaging the promoted post that you have is. Like, are you promoting garbage, in which case you're going to be spending like $3 a click. But if you're promoting something interesting, like a really catchy video, then you can get the prices down to like 1/10 of a penny per view. And so, like, I do these crazy videos with like donkeys and unicorns and stuff like this, and it's very, very catchy, and people remember this. This is like a stupid video of a unicorn getting hit by lightning and jumping into a rocket ship, and it's just so ridiculous, but it's kind of hard to unsee, and you end up with really low cost per clicks, and that influences click behavior later downstream, like when they do need to buy your stuff, if that makes sense. Number 3, I want to talk about eliminating your landing pages. So, landing pages, it's kind of like a death trap. Like, the typical landing page conversion rate is maybe 2 or 3%, and I'm suggesting, like, why would you send people to a page where, like, you're going to lose 97% of them? Instead, there's new formats, like new ad formats, like the email capture ads and call extensions that kind of bypass the landing page completely and allow you to kind of capture the information without having to lose 97 or 98% of them. And it's all based on a cost per lead basis. So this is like just the lead ad format where they never left Facebook, but they sent you, the information that you require. And those fields are customizable. If you need to have their mailing address or their phone number or whatever, you can just ask for whatever information you want. It'll pre-fill it with the information on the user's profile, so they don't even have to type anything. All they have to do is hit submit. And so you can see how the old way was pretty terrible, where you would lose most of them because of those extra steps. But the new way is actually a lot more streamlined because you've gotten rid of the leaky part of the funnel where they get to your website and 97% of them don't take action. So that my number 2 truth bomb, which has to do with structural changes to your flow. So this is kind of an example I wanted to share with you from earlier in my career. One of the most spectacular kind of little things that we did here was I was working at a software company, and the software product was a free desktop download. Like, so you downloaded some software for your desktop application, and you would install it. This was before apps and mobile. This was like back when people were using computers, and we put the download file behind a registration form. Okay, and that registration form had typical 3, 4, 5% completion rates. One day we decided like to get rid of the registration form and just have everyone be able to install the software directly without having to register for anything. Okay, so they then ran the installer for this application, which took 2 or 3 minutes, and then in the last stage of the installer, we asked people to register their software, to get a key code to unlock the trial. And oh my God, that, like, just because what that did was it 10x the registration rate, because like you kind of put the turnstile at the very end there, where they've invested already 3, 4, 5 minutes of downloading and configuring the install, and then it's like, oh great, now they're asking for this email registration in the software product. It's like you're holding them hostage there, and so it 10x the registration rates. It was so successful that we were generating actually too many registrations because it was just too many to call back. And so what we ended up doing was going to a system where after you used the products 2 or 3 times, so it kind of proves that you're a little bit more interested in the product, you then kind of block the software from working until they register the free trial. You see what I'm saying? So it's just little changes in the flow can make a difference. But this is a structural change. It's not just like changing the color or something. It's moving the turnstile from before registering to like after installing. So my last idea here is to change your offer. Okay, so if you've been working on an offer, trying to get it to convert, and it's like a donkey offer that has like a 3% conversion rate or something like that, well, then the universe is basically trying to tell you something. If you've tried everything, it's still stuck at 3% or 2%. The universe is telling you that your offer sucks. Whatever it is you're selling is garbage, or just not that interesting. And so basically, if you map out kind of conversion rates across thousands and thousands of companies and many different offers, what you'll find is like kind of the median average conversion rate for stuff on the internet is around 2.35%. But the top 10% of advertisers, they can kind of convert at 11.5% or more, and so it's very rare that you can kind of optimize your donkeys into unicorns. It's like there's something very interesting. There's something very differentiated about the unicorns that just makes them more interesting than the donkeys. Like in any industry, like we always find that the top 10% of these offers are 5 times better than average, and so the way to convert your donkeys into unicorns is is to make them more catchy. You have to find something that's a product or an offer that's a lot more exciting, because the higher click-through rates yield the higher conversion rates. Give you an example of this. You've got picnic pants versus drones. I mean, if your company is selling picnic pants, that's the worst possible product in the world that you could ever be selling. It's totally like ridiculous, and I don't know why anyone would be eating off their crotch. It seems a little unsanitary to me, and of course this is a product where you have very, very low click-through rates because it's such a dumb product. The conversion rates are also very low. Conversely, drones are very, very exciting and have very, very high click-through rates. So just the worst thing we can do here, and I think this is what a lot of conversion rate optimizers do, is they try to put lipstick on a donkey. They're like, oh, well, the reason why our picnic pants aren't selling enough, it's because we need better stock photography, or we need to, buy one picnic pants, get one free, or a bigger buy now button. This is lipstick on a donkey, and this is never going to go anywhere. What you need to do instead is change the offer. You need to stop selling picnic pants and instead sell something more interesting like drones. And let me just give you an example. Like, I'm sure you're thinking, like, well, Larry, how do I change my picnic pants into drones? Well, here I did this in my own business, like, back in 2010. So my company was about 3 years old, and for the first 3 years of my life, the offer that we were trying to get people to do was to do a free trial of the software, right? Why? Well, like, how original? Like, why? It's because everyone else was doing that, okay? But it was converting like 2.35% or something like that, and that tells you something. It tells you that 98% of people don't find it very interesting, and so we later changed that. After 3 years, I changed it into a grader. It was like a report card that just like quickly accessed your AdWords account and kind of gave you a report card, giving you like either a passing or failing grade. And this thing was so hilarious. It was like, it would tell you, like, you're the worst 4% of AdWords accounts we've ever seen. We'd say, like, this is how well your competitors are doing, and this is how terrible you're doing. Or here's that agency, you're paying all this money to manage your account, and they haven't logged in the last 30 days. They haven't done anything in the last 90 days. You see what I'm saying? So we just kind of changed the offer from kind of asking people to spend 3 hours to learn how to use a SaaS application, to just providing them with a completely different experience that is like kind of shocking and exciting and mind-blowing, and it took 10 seconds to do. And then so that was the thing that kind of raised the conversion rates by 10 times, which allowed the company to become the company that it was. Anyways, we're at the end of my top 10 hacks here. What does it all mean? Basically, we're talking about how to go from donkey land to unicorn land, and I think the idea is to kind of create this brand bias by producing this memorable, inspirational content, promoting it via like video ads and other scalable formats like content marketing. You then tag people who visit your site, okay, and you go after those people using remarketing, and just relentlessly pursue them until they click and convert. Consider getting rid of your landing pages if possible, and always eliminate those idiotic offers, donkey offers. And that's sort of what we're talking about today. It has very little to do with just little on-page changes. It's more of a process. So when I think of unicorn CRO, of course there's like the little on-page elements, fine, like emotional triggers. That was even one of my examples, but I think there's just too much focus on number one, and like the big wins in terms of the structural CRO conversion rate in gains that actually stick. They have to do with like hacks to dramatically increase your brand awareness and your affinity with your target audience, and also growth hacks like where you engineer your offer to be so much more compelling, which kind of pulls people through the funnel a lot faster. I'm just suggesting that we focus on all of these areas rather than just the on-page stuff, which is sort of the kind of the focus of most companies. And so you don't even need a CRO guy. All you need to do is just focus on the stuff that actually matters. And if you ever have one of those clowns kind of preaching you the 5% or the broken windows theory of like let's find 50 little things, and it'll add up to something, like, well, we gotta like say no to those guys. So yeah, just be a unicorn in a sea of donkeys. Thank you, Vertical Measures team. Do we have any questions today, Brad, or is that everything for today?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks, Larry. That was very. I learned a lot, and people are going to get a lot of takeaways from that. I do want to thank you for getting the 1-800 Cars for Kids song stuck in my head. I appreciate that. And so let's jump into the questions really fast. So the first one is, how do I know if my conversion rate is good or not for my industry?
It's the same for all the industries. Like typically, it's around 2.5% is the average. And if that's you, then it's terrible, because the goal is who aspires to be average. I mean, what you're trying to do is be above average, and it's a distribution. If you're in the top 75th percentile, then it's going to be around 5.5%, and if you're in the top 10 percentile, it's going to be over 10%. And so the difference between a great business and a crappy business is if you can get those conversion rates over 10%. And my company actually has conversion rates over 10%, but it required kind of changing the offer to be a lot more interesting, a lot more compelling. You see what I'm saying?
Okay, let's jump into the next question. And this is from Elizabeth. What is your best idea for building brand awareness for a new company?
Um, hmm. Well, the cheapest way to do it these days is Facebook ads, right? Because you don't need everyone in the world to know who you are. You just need to know. You just need your target buyers to know about you. And so what you can do is say, like, well, I'm interested in all the people. Maybe you're like a daycare, okay? So my target audience are going to be, it's going to be families with kind of children who are, 0 to 5 years old, you know what I mean? With working parents who live within a mile of the daycare center. You see what I'm saying? So like, you can really narrow it down to, like, I don't know, call it like 10,000 people, okay? And to get your ad in front of those 10,000 people, it's usually about $10 per 1,000 people. So it's about $100. Yeah, so if you can create a nice ad and kind of get it in front of all the people who meet your target buyer criteria, it might cost you like a couple $100, and I think that's like a lot easier than marketing like before this. Remember, like you had to wait for them to search for your stuff or something. That was ridiculous, because there's so many people that could have bought your thing who just didn't happen to think to search for it. And even if they do search for it, they'll have heard of you, and they'll buy from you.
Okay, the next question is, what is the weirdest CRO finding you've ever experienced?
Oh, I think I talked about it today. It's just where you take the same page, A versus B, A/B test, but don't make any changes to the two pages. Make them identical, and sometimes A will win, and sometimes B will win. It's just because it's just noise. These things, they are like it just switches. It's like. The reason why something does well initially is because it's new, and then the reason why it doesn't stick over time is because it's no longer new. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Okay, and we will do one final question, and then we'll wrap it up. Why don't the gains from CRO stick over time?
Oh, they never stick. Well, I'd say like 95, 97% of them don't stick. because it's just what I said there. It's just a lot of these things work because it's new. It's like ad fatigue. Did you know that if you've been running an ad for like a month on television, and if you change the ad to be a different ad, it will do better than the old ad. But it's not going to stay forever. After a week or two, people will have heard of this thing, and oh, yeah, I already know the end of this joke, and they're not gonna engage with it anymore. So it's just the reason for the success of these optimizations is also the same reason why it's not going to work a week or a month from now. You know.
Okay, well, thank you again, Larry. This was great. I think people are going to get a lot of great takeaways from this. And I'd like to thank all of you for joining the Vertical Measures team. We hope you come back and attend our October webinar with Robert Rose and Joe Polizzi, where they discuss their new book, Killing Marketing, How Innovative Businesses Are Turning Marketing Cost into Profit. You will not want to miss that. We will have registration open for that soon. Be on the lookout for an email or follow us on our social channels, Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter, and stay in the know. And again, I'm Zach from Vertical Measures. Thank you for attending the webinar, and I hope you all have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks, Larry.